Thank you, first of all, for releasing a full album, but first one on a new label in 25 years, first new material in like over 4 years. You've had songs that have been recorded or you've known about for 5 or 6 years. How are you feeling? Are you excited? Do you want to vomit? Where are we at, Blake?
Well, normally when I get excited, I vomit. So, uh, no, I'm very excited. I mean, I'm trying to figure out, exactly how to describe it because you said a lot of it there in your question. It's been uh, 4 years, I think, since I released an album, and I'd kind of gotten lazy there for a while because I'd retired from The Voice here in the U.S. and I've been doing that for 12 years, 2 seasons a year, and by the time I walked away from that job, I was just like, man, I'm ready to just go to back to the ranch and lock the gate and hide from the world for a while, and that's exactly what I did too. I just kind of took a long break, and it wasn't until uh, I got the phone call that Post Malone had asked me to sing on his album on a song that uh, things kind of got rolling for me again. I sang on "Somebody Pour Me a Drink," and then that song went on and was a big record for Post and for me, and it kind of got me thinking, like, what am I doing? Like, I'm wasting my life, and I'm wasting this rare gift, this opportunity that not very few people get, which is to get the chance to make records, and I'm being stupid about this. It's time to get back in the studio, and so I did, and I had a few things that I had recorded, in those years of not doing anything, and so I gathered those up and listened to them and kind of cherry picked what I thought was the best of that stuff, and then we kind of went in with a fresh ear, and that's when we recorded Texas and a few other things, and it's just been a blast. It really has. I mean, working with the new label now, BMG, that's been exciting. The whole thing just kind of feels brand new again. So I know that's probably the super long answer to that question, but it has been a lot going into this, and so I am nervous about it because I feel like it is a new beginning for me in a lot of ways.
Well, thank you for stopping like being stupid and getting back into the studio and recording because like Texas, Canada, it went number one for multiple weeks. And just seeing how fans are relating to your new music, that must be so exciting though for you and to hopefully take away a bit of the nerves. Because everyone wants to hear your hits, but then they're loving the new stuff. What's it like to see the audience reaction with Texas?
Well, I'm guilty of this too. If we have our artists that we like, growing up or whatever, and I think we all do this. It's like, man, I love so and so, but I love the early records. I like the first few records, and so I try to think of myself. I have to remind myself. It's like, man, people that come to my shows, they want to hear Old Red and Boys Around Here and things like that, and so when I'm able to sneak a new song in that goes on to become a big hit, like you just said, Texas has gone number one in Canada now. It's like, oh my God, they're letting me squeeze one more in there, before they say, all right, you've had enough. So uh, it's exciting, and it's exciting to have a new song to throw into the set that's brand new that people react to like they do for God's Country or Honeybee. One of those songs from back in the day. To add a new one in there is pretty exciting, and it keeps me fired up.
Well, I'm one of those people like I love new music, so I would love to see a concert where it's just all the new tracks. But one song
Yeah.
that's technically not new is Years with John. That was his song from his album like 2020. I
Yeah.
remember it. So how did you approach this? Were you like, hey buddy, I'm gonna record your song and you're gonna be on it?
Pretty much, that's what I said. I think I asked him permission, and when he said yes, I said, "Okay, well, I want you to be on it with me." Is kind of how it went. But John and I have become friends over the years. We've toured together, and he's actually we've gone on some trips together and stuff, and I just absolutely love. It's pretty cool to have one of your heroes also turn out to be not only just a great human being, but also a buddy, you know. And I sang on that album with John that his album was called Years, and we had a song together called Tuesday I'll Be Gone, and but I listening to that album, I always thought, man, Years is a masterpiece. Like that's just an incredible lyric, an incredible piece of music, you know. And I never really felt like that album got the recognition it deserved because of that's right when COVID hit and we weren't able to do any television performances or anything that you would normally do to launch an album, you know. And so I just kind of felt like it never really got the attention that it deserved. And so I told him, I said, man, if it's okay with you, I'm putting that thing on my album, and we gotta get a spotlight on that song, you know.
It really ends and kind of captures this album so lovely. And another duet on there, which I know everyone and their mothers is going to ask you about, is with Gwen Stefani, obviously your wife, best pal. But hanging on, I love what you guys do vocally with this song. But how do you pick the song? Or like, did you approach her and say, I have a couple tracks. Do you want to help narrow it down? Or this is the one, and you'll meet me in the studio at this time?
Well, with hanging on, you know, it's funny because Gwen and I have recorded, uh, you know, several songs together that we haven't released yet, and still as we're doing this interview, you know, and so it came down to when this album, all right, which one of these do we feel like is meant for this moment right now, you know, and hanging on just kind of felt like it fit in with the rest of this project musically. And you know, Gwen and I are we have a lot in common when it comes to music, and we have differences in the way we record. Meaning, you know, I'll record a song about going to prison and you know getting run over by a train, and where Gwen really has to, if she's going to record a song, she really has to feel a personal connection to the lyrics, and it's something that actually is going on in her life or she has gone through. So I finally had to say, I go, okay, look, I know this song is about breaking up, and you and we're still together, but we have broken up with other people before. So let's just pretend like, you know, we're in one of those old school relationships and we're singing this song. You know, I just try to get her over the hump because I knew she would just bring something to this song that it really needed, which is, you know, her charisma and her energy, and also just the cool factor of Gwen Stefani. You know, I know she's my wife. We've been together 10 years now, but I still I still get starstruck by her if I haven't seen her in a week. It's like, oh my God, she has this thing about her, you know, besides the celebrity and the pop star thing, she just has this thing about her that just makes her different and special. And so, you know, to be able to bring that to my albums, I'm going to ask her to do it every freaking time. You know, why wouldn't I?
And we're gonna love it every freaking time. And I'm a little mad at you right now because I have no emotions, and that just made me go like, oh. And then also because I listened to the song "Let Him In Anyway." I cried the first time I heard it, Blake. I'm like, you son of a gun. So for you, what was it like hearing it for the first time and then interpreting it as your own?
Well, you know, Hardy wrote that song, or he co-wrote it, and the guy is just. I mean, I think he's just brilliant, and he's always coming up with ways of looking at a situation and writing about it that you really hasn't been done before. And the crazy thing about Let Him In Anyway is, I mean, I can't speak for anybody but myself, but I've had that thought a lot of times when I've lost somebody. It's like, man, I wonder what happens now. You know, I mean, it would be nice to think, you know, when we die, we all go to heaven. But you know, if you're somebody who, if you're a Christian in any way, then you know if that's going to happen, there's these boxes that you have to check, and if you don't, I mean, it's pretty black and white, you know, and so that's kind of what the song is about, is, or not kind of, that's exactly what the song is about. Like, man, I know he didn't take the steps to make it into heaven, but I'm telling you, he's a good guy, and I almost had him there, and I think that's an actual real prayer that people have, and a wish that they have. And you know, no matter where you are on the spectrum of faith or religion, uh, I think that probably works for a lot of them. And you have to have had that thought if you've lost somebody that's close to you.
So I go from that, and a lot of these songs, like they'll make you think, or like they just make you have a good time. And Cold Can for me, when I listen to that, I couldn't stop smiling. There's specifically one line where you say, "Some nights it's Jose, four-letter words in Espanole."
I
Like how you delivered it. What was it like being in the studio recording that? Because I just imagine you're having the best time ever.
had so much fun, and I wanted it to be as full blown like country honky tonk as it could possibly be. That's why, I had Scott Hendricks. I said, man, I want a fiddle player in here, like just sawing on a fiddle the entire time, like to the point that that's driving you crazy. And we'll figure out what to do with it when we mix the record, you know. So if you next time you listen to that song, listen to how much fiddle's all over that thing, because I wanted to stamp it out as this is as country as it gets right here. And I just wanted it to be a party anthem, you know.
When we talk about party anthems, like this is kind of sometimes how I imagine you were recording because on a couple of the songs, including Life's Been Coming Too Fast, you go like, woo, to start out and you go, yeah. And you have all these little moments. Like, do you spend half a day in studio just going, woo, haha?
You would laugh. I've seen this thing on YouTube where, people will take like David Lee Roth's voice and strip away the rest of Van Halen, and all you hear is David Lee Roth going, ah, all these crazy sounds, and it's so funny. If you could hear me in the studio, it's probably the exact same thing, because I don't know how Scott Hendricks digs through all my, little improvs and all these stupid things that I do. He has to dig through at least 100 of them to find some that aren't embarrassing, that work with the song. I love doing that stuff, and a lot of times it's just little phrases and things I'll say that end up, just on the cutting room floor. But you got to try.
Oh yeah, because like people like me who listen to the record, those are some of the fun moments. And I was trying to think, I'm like, how do I ask you? It's improv that you're doing.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love those moments. But there's a couple songs, like I mentioned, Life's Been Coming Too Fast. You have this line that says, "A blender full of something that will kick my ass." Then I love on Stay Country or Die Trying, like the vibes of that attitude. You say, "Chisel that shit on my cobble headstone." So really like what I'm gonna ask you about is have you thought of going full outlaw country parental advisory and just dropping an F-bomb?
Well, I feel like I've done good not to do that on this interview at this point. Uh, but uh,
Have you ever said one in an interview? I don't think you
I
have.
don't think I have, no. Only if I've been drinking. It's pretty early in the day right now, but no, I haven't. I think I would draw the line at a. I think I would, as far as making a record, because I try to be mindful, especially now that I have kids. It's like, man, I don't know. I don't want there to. I don't want to have a record where kids can't listen to every single song on the album. You know what I mean? And I know that a lot's changed, and it's probably not as big of a deal as it used to be. It seems like, but I don't know. I'm old school enough that I feel like, all right, that's probably the one word that I feel like that would be going a little too far over the edge, and it probably doesn't even work for me anyway. My fan base would be like, man, what do you? That's not you. What are you trying to do? Like you're not that guy.
Of course, by F word, I meant farming. So that,
Of course you
of
did.
course,
Yeah.
like little bit of a misinterpretation here, but I'm lucky enough that I also get to cover sports for my station. And for the Toronto Blue Jays, one of the top pitchers, Chris Bassett, he uses God's country to go up to the mound, and it's just echoing in the stadium. For you, when you hear these athletes, because he's not the only one, but they use it to pump themselves up. Like, how does it make you feel?
That's really cool. I didn't know that. That's actually cool to hear that. I appreciate him doing that. Uh, I'll tell you, the first time I heard somebody say that to me, I lived back in Oklahoma, and I had a guy come over and do some electrical work on the house, and I had to meet him there, and he was there for an hour or so, and he was packing up his truck, and he was kind of got one of those guys that doesn't say a whole lot. I knew him, and he said, "Hey, by the way, I really like that new song you got, the one about God's country." And I said, "Oh, thanks." He goes, "Yeah, it just kind of pumps you up." Which he wasn't pumped when he was telling me the story, but I thought, oh, okay, you seem super pumped up right now. You need to listen to the song, I think. that was the first time I heard somebody say that, and then I started seeing like these YouTube people were making like their football, films of the year and showing the kids come out and bust through the banners and all that. And God's Country was a song that people used for a lot of that stuff, which it was, I don't know, that makes me super proud, and I love that stuff.
I think there's a number of songs on that new album also that can get people amped up and do whatever they want. The last question that I'm going to ask you is just, it kind of relates to that. Have you ever been at an event and like people don't know that you're there? You got your ball cap on, you're just enjoying the game, and your song comes on, and you're kind of like, oh no, they're going to know I'm here, but it just happens to be playing.
No, but that happens with Gwen all the time. I mean, I can't tell you, like, there's been several times we've been at a game, and I don't know, it'll be like, Hella Good or Hollaback Girl will come on, and every time it's like, really, you don't even like this team. Why don't they play my song when I come into the stadium?